This is the Authentic Dating series brought to you by Ahmad and David,
where we explore what it takes to have a dating life you're excited about.
Hey guys, I'm David.
I'm Ahmad.
And this is the Authentic Dating series.
This podcast is all about empowering men to take control of their dating by teaching a complete understanding of how to create meaningful and passionate relationships that they desire. We're known for leaving men feeling confident in who they are and showing up in a way that's naturally attractive.
And isn't that what you'd like to be? A little bit more naturally attractive. None of this like pretend attractiveness of, knowing lines or copying what your mate John does, but actually just being you and being attractive.
Yeah, don't do what John does.
Yeah, fuck John. So this episode is the part 2 of the longly anticipated episode we did with Ben Bidwell, the Naked Professor. It was just, this is the second half of a wonderful conversation we had with him at his place. If you haven't listened to the first half of this, it's worth going back and listening to that. In that first episode, what we talk about is like our own journeys with being more vulnerable, which is what we believe the kind of key ingredient is to creating deep and meaningful connections, and like what a lack of vulnerability creates in your connections, like why it is detrimental.
Yeah. And if you want to hear that, that's episode 39. So in this one, we're going to go more into how to be more vulnerable and create those connections now. And like, what does that actually look like? Because a lot of us talk about these authenticity or vulnerability, but not many people really understand what it means, or more importantly, what it doesn't mean. And so it's really important that we actually start to learn and understand, like, what are the signs of that we're not being vulnerable, what's getting in the way of us when we want to share, or when could we be more open, or what is appropriate to say. So all of this you're going to find in this episode. Yeah,
and like when we say vulnerability, it's not just about we talk about emotional vulnerability, but there's also a vulnerability in taking action towards what it is you want, and making the things happen in your life and in your dating life, especially to make them happen in the way that you'd want them to, instead of being passive and hoping that people will just throw the things you want at you.
So just before we jump in, just to let you know, you can find us on Authentic Dating Series, at Authentic Dating Series for Instagram. That's where we mostly hang out if you want to connect with us or send us any questions that you have around dating. You'll find us there. And equally, if you go to our website, www.authenticdatingseries.com, you can find out about all of our events that are coming up and everything that's going on at the moment.
Yeah, and we've got quite a few events coming up that could be really interesting to you. So head over there, head over to Instagram, come and say hello, and if you've enjoyed the episode, share it with somebody, or post a picture up on Instagram and tag us so that we can also share it. Like we love when people get up and share our episodes, because and hearing about what it is that they got out of them. So without further ado, we will jump straight into the episode. Yeah, totally. I think we've kind of touched on this next point about kind of signs that you aren't being vulnerable.
No, I think we can definitely take that a bit deeper.
Yeah,
I like that. I actually really like that.
I like
question,
that because it gives you, you the listener, a real understanding of being able to analyze your life. Like for me, if I say signs of not being vulnerable, it's like I'm avoiding hurt. Like I did this a lot in life. Like I'm avoiding hurt and I'm avoiding depth of relationship. So it meant that I was meeting girls and getting on well with them, but as soon as it started to go to a point where I become very adept at understanding women, so I could literally look at women and be like, she's got to that point where she's starting to think about this going somewhere. I need to stamp.
And that's from 100 yards or what? He's tracking from a distance like this one.
I need to stamp this out, and how I'm going to stamp this out is by going, I don't want anything serious. I just want to play around. I want to have 3 or 4 women that I'm seeing, and that should stamp that out, because I didn't want to go into that place of like having to feel responsible, air quotes, responsible for someone else's emotions and potentially hurting them and hurting myself.
I think for me, like what comes up a lot now, and especially I've been with Chloe for almost 3 years, and it's not like a massive amount of time, but at this point in my life, like I'm almost 36, like having a relationship where plan to get married, and what I noticed is there was a point in time where it's like, we're talking about formulas and I wanted to have everything perfect. And now I'm at a point where I realize that new shit, life will introduce new things to you. It's just today, like someone comes to your door and gives you a card or something, like today's challenge is this. And And what I say in terms of like signs that I'm not being vulnerable is when there's a persistent concern or feeling that I'm not expressing, that it starts to create. We talk about the walls and the barrier, and it starts to create. And my concern is like initially it's like, oh, do I need to talk about this? Do I really need to mention this?
Oh, I don't need to say this.
Yeah,
it's not a big deal.
Yeah. And then sometimes like you might make a little how do you say, like you're thinking about it. And then a little expression comes to like to your mouth, like and they're like, "What was that? Oh, nothing. No, nothing." But then eventually you realize that there's something that I need to just say. I need to express this. And I think one of the biggest lessons is when you realize just because I think something or just because I say something doesn't mean like my whole life is colored by this expression. Whether you want to talk about like your relationship, where you want to talk about how you feel about each other, whether there's new feelings, whether there's suppressed feelings, whether you feel hurt. Yeah. Like if it keeps coming up and you keep going, nah, like later, like snooze. Like if you keep pressing snooze on the emotion, we use that. If you keep pressing snooze on the emotion, then you eventually you got to wake up and you got to say something. Otherwise, my personal experience at this point, how do you say, like it interferes with the clarity of the connection,
of the communication,
of the Wi-Fi signal.
in normal language.
Yeah.
I think that the simplest example I could give on this, to be honest, that I see in my life is just someone who can't say sorry. Our ego never wants us to say sorry, never wants to admit wrong. And so you can really feel when someone actually genuinely apologizes to you, that's for me a great sign of vulnerability. They're willing to accept their flaws. Yeah. It's like, I'm not perfect. I made a mistake just like everyone else. I'm really sorry about it. Like that was my screw up. Yeah. Then that for me is like, okay, I get you. Yeah. Like that's a great. There's lots of little examples that I can see, like little flags that I can see in people in that kind of space. I guess another example would be someone who'd always rather be right than kind. Yeah. Ramming at home. Yeah. And you're like, okay, like
say that again.
They'd rather be right than kind.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Okay.
Like sometimes, like someone else is really adamant about something, and you're really adamant, and it's like, do you know what? Like what? So what? Like, what am I getting by being right in this, other than like fixing my ego?
Like flat earthers.
Like what? Flat earthers, yeah. It's like, hey, look, if you want to believe what you want to believe, that's great. We don't have to agree, and that's totally cool too. Yeah. I got my stuff, and you got your stuff, and like that's cool. Yeah. And that's that's kind, but we don't have to be right all the time. Our ego is desperate to be right?
That's very true.
It's a threat to our security if we're not right, according to our ego.
I like that. It's like a key. That's definitely one of those things. Like it's almost like a key characteristic of the ego. The ego has to be like, it has to be right. Like it loves to be right, and
and everything there's either right and wrong.
Yeah,
there's nothing else. Like you're right or you're wrong. Like it's black
or you're good and you're bad. And you're bad.
It's very
dualistic. What you paved,
because it's very chaotic to be wrong.
Yeah,
and to not know.
But also it's very chaotic to be not sure.
Yeah. Brené Brown says there's so much power in being able to live in uncertainty. Yeah, just being able to sit in that space and see. And I entirely agree.
I've got one.
It's authentic.
Yeah. I've got one more. Is that you're not being vulnerable when fear keeps stopping you from taking action in your life. Like you're not, because we talked about vulnerability from a point of view of emotional vulnerability, but actually, like I'm a big advocate of talking about almost, I don't want to call it's not physical vulnerability, but it's like vulnerability in your actions. If you're sitting here and you're like, oh, I really want to meet more women, so I'm listening to another million podcasts before I go and talk to someone, then actually that's just a way fear is showing up, because you want to know everything before you take action, or you're afraid to actually connect with people with who you are because fear is stopping you. And it's like, this is a sign where you're not being vulnerable, because fear is getting in the way of what you're doing. Or even if with like life goals, like that's a big one, isn't it? We forget that there's a vulnerableness in just going, do you know what? I want to think of something. I want to quit my job and I want to travel. There's a vulnerability in that, because it's like, this could go wrong. It might not go how I want it to, but actually that's what your heart truly desires. It's not a fleeting feeling you've had. It's like deeply you want to see the world and experience it. Yeah. But the fear is stopping you from taking that action.
I saw when you were talking to me about this before, and I really like that one, because it's so true. In life in general, it's so easy to just fall into the fold of society and what societal norms are about the 9 to 5, or it's not just about 9 to 5 and work, but any choice, like whether you want to write a book, like it's all of a sudden you're doing something that you're saying, I'm going to do this. No one else is going to come and support you with this. And you've got to pull it. Like for us, when we started the podcast, we just went, right, we're going to do this. And we were sweating it after that first episode.
We had this really long conversation. We sat down, we made the first episode, and we just went, okay, what might go wrong when we put this out? And we sat and we were like, ex-girlfriends might come and call us liars. People might hate what we say. People might accuse me of being bad people. Like all these things. And we sat for like half an hour, I think, talking about it. Yeah. And then we pressed go. And then we pressed like the upload button. And then you know what? None of those things happened. There's this interesting statistic I got this 6-minute diary that I've been using this year. And it said that it's like 85% of your persistent worries, right? Of all the things you worry about, only 15% of your persistent worries actually occur. Yeah. So all that 85% of that energy you put into worrying is completely pointless.
And actually, that reminds me, it's like, because it's something that we massively overlook when we get stuck in our thoughts, and it's time. Life and time and experience, and like being vulnerable to pursue whatever it is, whether it's traveling, whether you have a bucket list of things you want to create in your lifetime. It's like there's only so much time, and when we're not vulnerable with ourselves first and with others around us, then we can't live our lives. Like if you're always just like hiding out and worried about what other people are going to think of your creations, then so that's a really good one. I like that point.
Breathe in.
So next section, why you probably want to, I think we kind of touched on this again, why vulnerability is the key to connection. Like what is it about vulnerability that really builds the connections in terms of like friendships, like romantic relationships, even like family relationships? What is it about vulnerability that really binds us together?
So the simple language this is simple language, but fundamentally the easiest way I can explain it is that if we talk about vulnerability as a removing of the masks, or removing of the armour, and you really let people see you, your truth, and that when you really let people see you, that's connection. That's where connection exists. But they're not gonna really fall in love with your conversation about football or your car or your house. Or your, even your appearance, it's a nice thing, but they're not going to that's not depth of love, the type of depth of love that will stop you wanting to cheat or to want to go elsewhere or do other things. That stuff can all be nice in theory, whatever your passions are, but it's not. I really believe that, particularly as men, if we're not going to look elsewhere, and I can't speak for women, so I don't know how they feel, but as a man, if I'm not going to look elsewhere, I've got to have that depth of connection. Yeah. Our hearts have got to meet and match, and I've got to be right in that space where this person is beyond anything else that's going on in my life and anyone else I've ever met. Like we are, connected deeply, and that requires an exposure of myself beyond armor, masks, anything else. You've got to really let yourself. I would go back to this phrase of letting yourself be truly seen. Really, like warts and all, everything. You're not perfect. Like, that's your truth, and your screw ups and your achievements and everything, all parts of you. Your anger, your resentment, your love, and your kindness, every bit of you, and knowing that that's really who you are. That is where connection lives, and vice versa with them. They need to let you in too. Yeah, but it's unlikely that someone will let you in if you're not letting them in. It's a two-way game. But that for me is that all requires vulnerability, all of that, and not many people go there, and that's what I think there's a lot of relationships, it's a horrible thing to say, but tick a lot of boxes, but there's not that deep fulfillment, because without all that stuff, we're always limiting our relationship, and there's so many attractions, there's instant gratification everywhere. Lust is always going to be within us all. If we're not deeply connected, then those things become more attractive, and it's not a healthy space to live.
So the shadow takes over.
Exactly. And the shadow will lead you elsewhere. But when you've got that depth of connection, it's like, oh my God, this is beyond anything I've ever experienced, or this is just so powerful. This meeting of hearts, this vulnerable connection of just hearts we've got is just that is what we need to keep a relationship alive for me.
So a question occurred to me earlier, and it seems like a good time to ask it now. Was like, because you've mentioned a couple of times for you in the past with your relationships, it was quite like you don't even know where you were. You were one place, you were somewhere else.
Yeah.
So how have you seen your connections and relationships like transform with vulnerability?
Yeah.
Like
Totally.
what does it look like?
Different level, like real impactful conversations that my heart comes alive when I have them. You know, whereas before frequently girls used to say I was dead inside. You're dead inside.
Wow.
You know?
That's not nice to hear, is it?
But you know, I was just like, I know.
Yeah. Oh,
like it didn't hurt me. I was like, well, dead inside, so like you can't hurt me anyway.
Wow.
So tell me something I don't know.
It's like a badge of honor.
Exactly, it is part of it. It's like, that's what I've managed to achieve. You know,
Achievement levels.
Yeah.
Manliness levels.
Totally, absolutely.
Dead
you
inside.
can't hurt me.
Yeah,
you know,
no, I get it. Yeah.
And now, that was a direct correlation to the depth of the relationships I could experience for me. So now I'm not in a relationship, so it's hard to kind of gauge right now how that'll be. But I'm really excited about the possibilities of what that can be.
Maybe we could help you, Ben.
Well, I'd love that if you can. You know,
I reckon there'll be a few listeners out there with.
Follow us. Follow us.
I'm ready.
Out into the streets of London.
Do you know what? It's like it's the next part of my evolution for me. I feel very ready, and I haven't felt ready before.
Okay.
But I feel very, very ready now.
So when you meet someone in general, I presume in conversations, even if you're not in a relationship, because for us at this point as well, it's not just my relationship with my partner, but like, you know, my relationship with Dave, my relationship with my dad,
Totally.
my relationship with my sister, like it's different, and it's like I've become more relaxed and less self-conscious, because even if I am feeling self-conscious, I'm aware that everyone's feeling this way, and you just breathe into it, and it's a being in the moment as opposed to being right or being ready all the time or being a certain way. It's just, this is what I'm being right now. And just being like, even when I walked in here earlier, it was like, you know, how is it going to be? Like, then we set, but I just settled into my own thing and just like, all right, I'll just be this. This is what I'll be.
This is who I am.
So how do you find it now? Like, are you like, you're not dating or anything, but like...
No, but you're exactly right. You know, the relationship with my mum. I mean, like, the relationships only really open up with people who have got that possibility themselves. So my relationship with people who are just stuck in that same space, is you can't force them out of it. So I'm still hitting a bit of a wall with some.
Sure.
But the people who I'm inviting people who are more sort of wholehearted now into my life, and that means we can go there together, and that it just makes my heart come alive.
Nice.
You know, it's a beautiful feeling of like you walk away kind of fuzzy or just alive. Connection is the word I come. You know,
you're feeling it.
Feeling.
It sounds like you're just feeling. You're actually feeling alive, enlivened.
Enlivened. Yeah. It's beautiful, and as I say, I think a big challenge for a lot of men is that I don't think I didn't ever experience that in my 20s. So I didn't know what I was missing. I was like, okay, all this vulnerability to do whatever. It doesn't. I'm fine how I am. I didn't know what the other side was. Now I'm experiencing it. And it's just, you know, when you say how does it feel, it is just a feeling of connection. I don't know how else to explain it. It's a beautiful feeling of like, I see you. I really see you, and I feel you. And it's lovely. Yeah. And it's the most powerful drug in the world for me.
Yeah. I feel like I can go back to my 20s, and I remember I was in Finland, and I met this girl very randomly in a bar, and then ended up, she said, go back to her parents' house.
I remember this story.
And like the connection we shared in those few days for me was like really powerful. And I felt it, but it just scared the living daylights out of me. And you just run back to the way you feel safe. And it's like, for the men and women listening, especially the men, it's like, you felt this. You have felt what it feels like to feel someone. I guarantee you. And it filled you with fear, so you run away from it. Because I think we all feel it at some point in our lives. Even if you're like 19, if you're 35, if you're 95, you felt it at some point. And if you're not willing to feel it more, it's that you just run away from it in some way.
So the bit I really want to, what is that fear about? Because why? What are we fearful of? And this is the key part, because I think when we don't understand ourselves and we just feel that fear, we're like, oh shit, run. But if we can understand what that fear is about, and then understand actually, really, is that serving me?
Yeah.
Should I really be feeling fearful around this? Then we can change our perception of it and actually move into the space.
Yeah.
Right?
No. It's you know, like you said before, it's often kind of there's some childhood thing.
Yeah.
There's rejection.
Yeah.
There's getting like the men. Like we did some research with a bunch of men in London around their dating, and one of the big things that come up for men very often was the fear of getting it wrong. Yeah. Or making the wrong choice. It's like because the ego is telling you need to be right. As men, we need to be right, and if you're wrong, you're a bad man. Yeah. And it's like that often for me. When that moment there with her was like, oh, we'd have to do it long distance, and maybe it'd be lots of effort, and the effort won't be worth the reward, or it won't work out. So I was like, it's better not to try. Like that come up for a lot. It's like, oh, this might not go right, so it's better not to try.
Totally. And that is an unfulfilling way to live.
Very.
Yeah, I feel like on that sort of fear and running away, like definitely something that we've been experiencing because we've moved back into coaching a couple of guys and one of the like it's almost like level 1 is actually getting in touch with how you feel, and I think on some levels some people don't even allow themselves to feel the base. Like I feel angry, let alone I feel lust and love and whatever, nervous. Just like the base feels like I feel angry or I feel sad or I feel, and actually just sit with that. I kind of had this, I think yesterday, where I was like, I had a bit of time to myself and I didn't really feel like doing anything, but then there was so much to do on my to-do list. So then I was just like, there's always so much to do on my to-do list, like literally every my to-do list is automatic as well, and there'll be on certain days it says you have 2 new items. Stuff I've scheduled is now put into the to-do list. But I just like, I actually just stopped to feel, because we were talking about you talking about the ego thinks and the intuition feels. Yeah. And just to stop and just, what am I feeling? Because I wasn't feeling anything. I was just like in a sort of innocuous space, and I was like, what do I feel? What does my body feel? And I feel like if you are listening to this and you're thinking, I don't have any emotions, it's actually to go, actually, I do, but I'm not paying attention, or I'm not allowing myself. And then there's a whole sort of chasm of like, oh, I'm not allowed to feel. I'm not supposed to feel. And so society, I know, has played a massive role from some of the stuff that I read recently. It's fascinating because you think we're so kind of progressed beyond the war now, right? But the 2 wars, but they had a massive impact on men, and a lot of men are no longer with us because they died in the war. And those that came back were taught, like, you didn't have post-traumatic stress back then. You just came back and you got on with it. The stiff upper lip. And so then we're in the generations of men that were raised by men who are raised by men who are of that ilk. And now we have the internet, and that's changing things, and we're people like us talking about it. And also, I know in my personal experience, I grew up with a lot of women around, so I definitely had that sort of emotional experience growing up, and I know yours was similar.
Yeah, the same.
So in a way, Dave and I recognize that we're not the norm. But there is a norm, and the norm is not to experience your emotions, not to think and feel. And that, in fact, to be a man, you're supposed to be dead inside.
And but on that, so that I totally agree with everything you say, but then my next challenge was like, okay, cool, I'm willing to feel more. How do I do that? And it's like, I did a podcast last week with a scientist, and it was literally like, yes, but how do we feel? Not like, as in, tell me the emotions. I don't know how to feel my feelings. Like, what's that? And he said, it's you got to treat it like a muscle. And I think this is really key advice for men. So the more you use it, the stronger it will get. And it's the same with the ego. The more we hear our ego, the more louder it gets. So if we're programmed to continually listen to that fearful voice, then that's going to be a prominent voice that's constantly in our ear. And we bury it, and on the contrary, we bury the feelings. The quieter they get, and the less connected we are to them. So just simply checking in with how we feel as much as we can. And I try, and every Friday on my Instagram, I now share how I feel, because it's my conscious effort.
And it's beautiful.
Thank you. It's connection, right? When you share, people see it. But it's important for me in my own journey. And I'd written a couple of times of like, I haven't felt much this week. I don't know what I felt, and I'm sad about that.
I saw these. And
that's so we just keep checking in with yourself. What have I felt this week? Or like maybe even keep a journal. The feelings, and then those feelings. The more you do that, you'll start to feel them more, and then we're returning back to source. We're getting out of the fear and into our reality, and that's beautiful.
I think it's like some exercises that like I do is with other people, where like I ask people, how do you feel? And then when I hear, and I've been doing it a lot more recently, like, you know, we've been coaching someone and I'm like, how do you feel? And I hear good, and I'm like, good is not feeling. And then it kind of hits people. It's like a jolt, and then you're like, so how do you feel? And they're like, oh, I'm not sure. And I'm like, okay, it's cool, keep going, because there's something there. And then you go, okay, I found that closing your eyes, and one of the things I think is really useful is like, okay, because I've often, you probably found this as well, is that when people can't feel like their emotion, they also don't really feel their body very well. So I usually start with the soles of the feet. We all know what the soles of our feet feel like because we stand on them so much. It's like, can you feel that? What do you actually feel? What is the sensation? So like once you can get into the sensation of the body, you can start like working your way up and going, okay, when you're in your stomach, what do you feel there? Like, oh, I feel a churning, or I feel like, you know, the odd pulsation. It's like, okay, now how are you feeling right now? And I found that with people, it's like, it's amazing how once you say that, they're like, they've gone through their body and they say, oh yeah, like I'm feeling a bit worried, or I'm feeling this about this thing. It's like, but it is like what you said was perfect about, it's a muscle. You have to continually be like sharing how you feel, or even, you don't even necessarily share it with someone else, as long as you're willing to share it with yourself and like write it down, or even just acknowledge yourself, like, I'm feeling this right now, and it's okay. Like you almost want to say it always afterwards and go, and it's okay.
Totally. All emotions are welcome.
Yeah, and just to add something there as well, like what you said there, like if your first thought is like, I don't know what I'm feeling, that's a great place to start. It's better to acknowledge like what you're feeling and start there. Because I find that sometimes it's just like, you know, and perhaps it's because of the upbringing or whatever, my relationship to my emotions and not feeling, and then just and actually just on a simple level for me, sometimes meditation, just breathing and noticing where the breath gets stuck, or I'm not free in the breath. And so what I mean by that is I could be like in my belly, I'm not fully breathing into my belly, or maybe it's in my chest. And often there'll be something that I'm not paying attention to. And I feel like this is normal in life, that there's so much going on. There's 24-hour news now on every channel, and it's like, and there's always something to take your attention, and then so things get swept under the carpet. Yeah. And so, you know, this happened in the morning, and then so said that to you, and then your mum is annoying you right now, and then, you know, whatever, right? You got this bill to pay, you're worried about not covering your costs for this trip, whatever. And you don't realize that there's levels that are happening at the same time. And to go back to something you were saying, it's like, you know, when you connect with that and let them come through, you feel at ease, you feel free to exist in the world, and you're actually calm. But yeah, like I understand, to begin with, if you can't feel, like, is just to acknowledge that I can't feel, and let's take the time out to breathe, to go in, and I think actually that's a big thing, that a lot of people don't take the time for themselves, whether it's meditation or whatever your practice, to feel.
I think like we kind of get into the next point, is like how
we're already in.
We're deeply into the next point. It's like how to be more vulnerable and create connection that you desire. And I think we all agree the first place you want to start is actually with yourself. It's like, how can you connect more with yourself? Like for me, I would say like a part of it was like yoga. Actually, I found yoga to be really good because you are in your breath and in your body. And I wouldn't do yoga for years. I was like, it's just stretching. Like, I don't need to do any stretching. I can lift big weights. But actually, the yoga for me was amazing. Like breathwork's been really beautiful for me in the last like year. Like I've done a lot of, like every other month I've gone to a session and mixed. Good. And like, you know, Hannah, there's a woman over at our home, she runs men's only breathwork.
Yeah, it's really good.
And it's a really beautiful space, and you get a real mix of men. Like there's guys in there who feel like they look like they've just rolled in out of the pub, you know, and they've been in the pub for 40 years. Nice. And there's guys there who look like they just floated off from a cloud from their guru, you know, and it's like a real mix. But that being in a space of men sharing their emotions that way has been really beautiful. I'd also say for me, it's like having friends who I can talk to. Like really talk to, and like making friends, and like being willing to like go out and go, oh, I'm interested in this thing. Like events is something I'm really big on. Is like attending events that you're interested in. There's a vulnerability in turning up somewhere alone, not knowing what's going to happen, in the unknown, and just going and surrendering yourself to however the evening may go, and just being like, okay, I want to do this. I'm following my heart. It's what I really want to do.
Like you did with our event.
Yeah. Like I remember being really so some context. Ben ran an event. It was you, Richie, and a few other guys, and it was breath work. Then there was an ice bath, and then we did a talk, and there was some more breath work at the end. And I was like, I'm gonna have to go on my own. I was like, I'm gonna be in a room with 100 men, and for me that was quite like, I realised after I booked it, I was like, what's this feeling I'm having? I was like, I feel nervous to be in a room with 100 men. Like, I might not be good at it. I had all these conversations. I was like, and then I went there and I sat there and I was like, oh wow, there's a lot of men here. Like, I feel small. It was like guys were massive and big, and I was like, oh no. And I was like, I'm having all these thoughts and these feelings. This is interesting. And like just being with it through the whole day was just like amazing. But you know, it was beautiful to be in a room with people like that. I learned so much. I got so much out of being there. And it's like going and pushing yourself to go to things like this is just like amazing.
Yeah, definitely to open up your if it's not something you're aware of, then definitely education in and I think we do live in an age now where there's so much on offer. Like breathwork is a great one, because it's what I like about breathwork is it's almost automatic. If you're thinking you're not doing it, it's like you should just be breathing, and then whatever needs to be processed just comes up. And so I find that very powerful. But just the fact that you can actually go to so many different events now and talks is a great thing, because I think possibly one of the simplest ways to make any transformation in our lives is to be around people that are already ahead in that area and they're talking about it. Like we were saying, like just as a perspective of being vulnerable, it allows other people to be vulnerable around us, right? So it's the same thing. And like with our coaching as well, I find at the moment, like because Dave and I just naturally come from a certain space, like one of our clients, he's like, yeah, this is the most open I've been. And I'm just like, oh, okay, I get that because we're just so non-judgmental and just so like just chill with what we're saying. It just naturally creates a space that other people are like, I don't know why I'm saying this. I don't know why.
Totally.
But yeah, like if for our listeners, yeah, I think what Dave just said there as well, it's like being in your body as well it's a tricky one, I think, perhaps for a lot of people, because they go very much into that dynamic of physicality and I must do. But actually, I find physical activity for any man is really important. It's an important part of being a man, is being with our hands and whatever it is, like whether it's yoga or climbing. I really enjoy it. Yeah. But it's a great way to feel and move and process without, necessarily talking.
Yeah, it's, the thing that comes to me most strongly is I've got this phrase in my head that says, say the real thing, not the right thing. That for me is the biggest act of vulnerability. The right thing is always your ego trying to conform. Yeah. And the real thing is what's inside of you, really what you're feeling. And that's pretty vulnerable in this day and age. But if I can maintain this commitment to myself that I will say the real thing, not the right thing, then... And to give that some context, the journey that I've been on, the understanding that I've got for me is that I'm very conscious that my heart, or that intuition, that energy inside of me, whatever you want to call it, is a very kind, compassionate thing. So if I'm always saying the right thing, some people might be like, right, well, that's I'm going to tell my boss to F off, and he to C-U-N-T and there, that, and whatever. That's my right thing. That's my real thing. How's that going to get on for me? It's like, no, your heart is a kind, compassionate thing. That's not that stuff you're talking about. That's just your ego trying to make other people wrong. Yeah. What's real inside of you is this kind, compassionate, loving, empathetic energy that wants to connect. Getting to that space and being that again, we're going back to the same thing, but that for me is freedom, because I really believe whatever I say from that space, it's never going to be the wrong thing. Yeah. It's always even if I say it wrong, it comes from a good place, and people will be able to feel that. And I was sure I make mistakes and I say the wrong things at times, but you can own it, and it can come from a place of truth. And so that, for me, I'd always say, the first part is understanding, the big part, understanding your truth, understanding who you are. We talked about this, who actually really you are, not your ego's perception of you, who you should be, really who do you feel you are. And then from that space, with that understanding, share that. You say that real thing of who you are. That is all of it for me, summed up. Yeah. It's coming from that space. And it's a vulnerable act, but it's where connection ensues. And I think it's a much more liberating, much more powerful, much more exciting, much more fulfilling way of living.
Beautiful.
And vulnerability is at the centre of it.
Vulnerable living.
Vulnerable living.
Well, it's being human, you know. That's the funny thing is like so many of us, we all talk about human beings, but we're actually not being human. Like being human,
we're human doings.
You look at the word human. Hue is like the hue of the light, like different, and man. So it's like the different sides of us. There's so many. It's like a prism, right? Yeah. And not many of us are actually human beings. We're human doings, and these things. So it's actually getting back into that. All that, like as a world, living vulnerably, living as humans, getting back to experiencing life as opposed to I need to do this and then the checklist sort of thing, and then retire at this age and show everyone that I've done well and prove my family proud and whatever. It's not the saying that any of those things are bad inherently, but it's actually the intention of this life and this experience of what we're doing here and what we're up to is being and experiencing that joy and sharing that joy, and so and I really like that. It's beautiful.
It's just like this again, how to be more vulnerable. It's like sometimes I know some people want like an action, like what do I need to do? And one of the things I say for a lot of guys is like get more in touch with your feminine. You know, because we live in a world that's very masculine driven and doing and accomplishments and stuff. Maybe
like
you
want to explain that dynamic a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
What do you mean you get in touch with my feminine?
I always avoid that phrase for that reason. Because someone the person I think we're trying to speak to try and make that difference, try and help them in that space, they don't want to be in the feminine.
No. But in fact, that's what they're really yearning for. Totally. It's like the connection, actually, you can say connection and feeling is what people would class as like feminine attributes, nurturing, loving, even things like dance, like movement. Kind of, it's almost like, imagine you went to dance. Dancing I find this interesting one, right? You go to a club to dance, but there's no purpose to your dancing. There's no goal. No. You go because the music's good and you're in the moment of enjoying the music. And that is the essence of being in your feminine, is being in the moment of now. And it's like, you say it to someone like, oh, I'm going to go to a rave, I'm going to dance. And they're like, I can do that. And it's like, well, actually go and do it, because there's no goal there. The goal is simply to be there and enjoy each of the moments. It's like, you're not thinking about how am I going to get to the end of the night as fast as I can.
True that.
It's like, that is like, be in the moment and enjoy and feel the enjoyment as you're there, and not be kind of goal orientated and stuff like that. And
the thing with the feminine, because I find this is a really nice phrasing that people resonate with whenever it comes up, is actually moving any sort of discussion off of man versus woman and start talking about masculine and feminine energy. And a lot of people I've spoken to resonate with the fact that yes, we have both masculine and feminine energy within us, some more predominant, and it's not dictated by your genitalia. Like you could be a woman with more masculine traits, or you could be a man with more feminine traits. And really it's about owning that, and I think if that's an issue as well, like that needs to be reconciled internally, and just acknowledge and reconcile, just be like, oh, that's accepting of self, like, oh, this is who I am. And I know for me personally, like, again, having grown up with predominantly, I've got two sisters, one older, one younger, and most of my cousins are female, and a lot of them came and stayed when I was growing up. So I was like this, like one guy surrounded by women, and so I've naturally taken on certain traits and understood and grown and nurtured inside of that vibe. So with that in mind, it's like just acknowledging the feminine in us, whatever it is. Like there was a guy the other night I was talking to, and something as simple as wearing beads. Like, men, we like function. This has no function. Like, you know what I mean? Like, where is the function? It's like
jewelry.
Yeah, in the
What's
jewelry.
The point?
Yeah, but because we want to watch. Like, this tells me the time. It's got GPS, and I can see where I'm going when the sun's down. I can navigate by night. But the whole thing is like, art is another feminine. And so for me and David, I know we come from a similar school of thought with like the feminine is the creative, is that sort of aspect, and the masculine is the doing aspect. It's like, we're going to get on with this and do this. And so it's really important just to acknowledge within you that whether it's dancing, whether it's drawing, whether it's poetry, whether it's reading, whether it's long walks in the park, it's like whatever, there's aspects of which are just calm and relaxing, even, I don't know, like watching football could be considered like in that way, like where you're just observing as opposed to playing and a doing, and so yeah, just understanding that we all actually have masculine and feminine within us, and that's again just part of being human. I mean, the interesting kicker as well about all human beings is we all start off as feminine, right? Like that, biologically, and I don't know the mechanics of it, but something enters and then we change to be more masculine, right? But so we all start off as feminine. But yeah, it's a tricky one for some people to hear.
I was just thinking, I can understand, in my 20s, I go back to how can I communicate with myself in the 20s? And if someone said to me, you need to embrace more of your feminine energy, I just would have been like, nah, you're barking up the wrong tree. I'm not bothered by that stuff. You go and do it.
Yeah.
But I'm this is who I am. That's what my ego learned. That's my secure space. And that's what I need to do. I'm living in tune with my ego. So I try and consciously try and speak almost to myself. How could I try and impact that person?
Yeah.
And for me, that just means using language that is relatable.
Yeah.
And the feminine energy, I just wouldn't have related to. Although it's totally correct, and I completely agree with everything you're saying. I just
I wouldn't have spoken to you.
How do you?
I say that we're multidimensional beings.
Yes.
And
there's a great song.
Is there?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I try and I basically try and say to men, look, I'm not trying to take anything away from your masculinity. Go and be that leader, that warrior, that you're going to go and show all that courage and the strength that's inside of you. But don't do it at the expense of connecting with love and empathy and kindness, because as human beings we have that inside of us too. So go keep being who you are. What I'm trying to do is add to you and try and give you the capability to be able to be that warrior when you need to be, but then to be able to step into that connecting, loving space when you need to as well, and understand that you can be all of that, and you don't have to pigeonhole yourself.
Yeah,
nice.
And that, for me, that that would have spoken to me more.
Yeah. I feel like it's like 2 a.m. in the morning when you're watching TV and they got the person doing the sign language.
Yeah.
We need Ben there just to communicate to the men.
No, you guys are doing great.
Like,
there's no right or wrong.
Like, no, but it's man. You know what? Man speak. But the thing is, we're both aware and appreciate what you're saying, like, because it's true. It's like there are a whole bunch of men who are just like, nah, fuck this. Like, they'll probably hear our podcast, but nah, no, But when you communicate it in a way that's relatable and they can understand, then it's like, oh yeah, sure, Yeah.
That's the goal. That's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah. Because I almost come from a place of, like you said, talk to yourself in your 20s. Is like I talk to myself like when I was probably in my kind of mid 20s, and I on the flip side to you was like a lacking in masculinity. Like I would always look to masculinity as being something wrong and bad, and I'd be like, oh, it's bad, it's wrong, so it's better to be kind of gentle. And what's partly helped me is like going, oh, there's this masculine element who wants to lead, that wants to move forward and do things. Let me engage with that in a loving and kind way that actually brings me towards what I really love in my life. And it's like, you're sitting here, you've got three men whose lives are very different, but we've all kind of come along a journey to a singular point and being like, this is actually how I want to exist in the world. It's like, be more vulnerable, be more of myself. Or how was it you put it earlier?
I don't know. What did I say?
You put it really well. Like, instead of just saying, you should be yourself. It's like, that's it. You should discover yourself.
Discover.
Right.
Yeah. We think we know because for whatever reason we just think we know. But then as time goes on, you realize how little we knew. Like, even like if we were to time travel now, like I wouldn't necessarily want to go back to where I was before, because I was way more self-conscious and had less clue about who I am and where I'm at. So I love that about age as a thing, as with wisdom. Yeah.
One of the things that started me on my journey is really important. And again, I recommend to people is like, I was so in my thoughts, but I wasn't thinking why I was thinking the way I was thinking. I was just thinking and going through the process of having these thoughts. It's like, if you start to question the why and go, okay, like I'm always really worried about, being in a relationship. I'm scared of being hurt. Like, why am I scared of being hurt? Oh, because I don't want to be hurt. No, but why am I scared of being hurt? And once you start, it's like unraveling a piece of like wool, the balls of wool. And as you keep pulling and asking why, you get closer and closer to why it's actually really happening. And like, to go on this journey to discover yourself is, you have to be willing to be vulnerable and say, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I thinking what I'm thinking? And why am I feeling what I'm feeling?
Yeah.
Totally. But that requires time alone. You know, a lot of stuff that society says, like, oh my god, you know, you're all right. You're just staying at home on your own.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we're not. No one's ever taught us to do any of that stuff. That's not ticking any of society's boxes.
Yeah.
It's like, are you okay? you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a lot now about like therapy. That's like a new wave, and it's not bad. I don't see it as bad or negative or positive either. It's just like, but people need to learn how to feel and understand what's actually going on, because in society now, especially with the interconnectedness that's available, it's so easy to compare. And I know I've definitely been someone who, like, especially historically, you look at someone else, but fuck, like, where's my life in comparison to this person? I should be ahead. And we're always ahead of some people, and we're always behind other people, but it doesn't care. Like, the ego is a classic trait, doesn't give a shit. The ego's like comparing and, you know, and constantly in that way. So it's really important to discover yourself, spend time with yourself, and if you don't feel comfortable spending time with yourself, inquire. Why don't you feel comfortable spending time with yourself? And even if you're having problems spending time with other people, inquire. Why do you have to? You're like, so everything is not to belabor yourself with endless like self-inquiry, but just to pay attention to where is your internal compass taking you, and slowing down. You know, a massive thing, especially in this city, like in London or any city in the world. I remember traveling to New York years ago and thinking, wow, man, the pace is so fast here. I could never survive here. I was quite young at the time. And now I feel London is there. It's like where that used to be. So I don't know what they're... I've not been to New York in a long time. I don't know where they're at now. Everything's like fast forward. Like, and it's so important, like, to get out of the city, spend time in nature, spend time with other men, like who are in this sort of work and in this sort of awareness, and get off the hamster wheel and give yourself the time to just be.
A lot of foreign stuff there for a lot of people. Probably it's you know, if I heard that stuff in my 20s, it would be like, it's very foreign. Society, it's not the path we're shown basically by society, is it?
No.
I think this is a really important part for me, is that I don't blame any guy for being the way they are.
No.
Because a lot of them are doing exactly what society pointed them. They're smashing it. It's like, fair play to you. You've done really well. Unfortunately for you, society's pointed you in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
And you didn't, like, I did it as well. Everyone's doing it.
Yeah.
But the truth is a different direction is the way you've got to go. And you've smashed everything that you were told to do.
Yeah. And there's this, I always say, is like, there's a feeling of emptiness that's there, that you're feeling, and you're trying to fill it with more success, more stuff, more money. And there comes a point for a lot of men and women as well, is they do this for a period of time and then they realise that it's not going to work. No. It doesn't work. And then at that point, there's a question of like, well, what do I need to do?
So so my perspective on life at the moment, if you just look at it objectively, is like we're on this game map, like in the middle of a universe, just going around the sun. And we get so caught up in whether we're climbing the corporate ladder or we're collecting objects, houses, cars, and travel points and whatever, right? It is though, right? But then it's not, and again, it's nothing's ever wrong or bad, but when people get lost in thinking that's what it's about, but the truth is it's not what it's about. Like, and the truth is no one knows what it's about. And so everyone's like running around trying to be better or one up, but we don't know how much time we've got down here. We don't know for how long. There's a lot of conjecture and there's a lot of worry and woe, but what we do know is the game has started. There is a timer on the clock. We don't know when it's going to run out, and you know, days are as long as, you know, you give it, and stress is as much as you want to, you know, allow into your life and create. And there's so much more what we could say about this in terms of, you know, how you find your purpose or what you want to do with your time here, right? But the key thing is like actually stopping to understand yourself is possibly one of the most important fucking things that you can do in your life, because then you can go, what do I actually want to do?
Yeah.
Like, what do I actually want to do? Not I should be a doctor because my parents told me to, or I should be this way, or that I should be in a relationship because society says it's bad to not be in one, you know, or whatever. But actually go, this is my life. Like, and what is it? What brings me joy? Have I traveled? Do I want to? You know, and all these things. And I think that's that's, you know, when you say it's like people are like it's foreign to people, and it's very true because we get so wrapped up in news and politics and like society. You strip all this back. Like I often say to people, like, yeah, where we are right now at some point would have been a forest. You know, at some point in time. Most of London, I remember going to one of these restaurants that has a great vantage point, and what you can see is the city, and of course, as further and further away it goes, more and more trees.
Yeah.
And it's not that they planted more and more trees. No, there just used to be more fucking trees. And we have built amazingly, like somehow roads and tarmac and stuff everywhere. But yeah, it's so what I'm talking about is getting back to the true nature of who we are as beings, and that we're here to experiment, to enjoy, to play. But you can't do that if you're not allowing yourself to actually feel what you enjoy or love when you feel to love, you know. Cultures, I speak for myself, right? Culturally, I've broken so many rules in my culture, like marrying outside of the religion, not really into the religion, this like, which is huge, right? And I have to like reconcile that. Like no one can carry that for me. And it's like everyone needs to be able to do that for themselves. Yeah. Like that's going to give you freedom. And it is, you know what we haven't said? None of this is necessarily easy.
Like, I think it's very clear that none of it is easy.
Yeah.
It's not the easy path.
Yeah, no. It's not easy, but it becomes easier and you become grounded.
Yeah.
Like in that. No matter with all the chaos. You begin to realize that your experience right now in this moment is the only experience that you've got. So you may as well really be present to it and enjoy it for whatever it is, you know? Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Absolutely.
Yeah. Bit of a speech there. It took me. It just came through me.
Yeah. I think that's a good place to wrap up. Any closing words, Ben?
Yeah, please.
No, I mean, like this is, I think, experience connection. You know, it's a beautiful thing, and I love having these conversations. And the more men, I know women as well, but women are a bit more in tune with this stuff. We're a lot more in tune with this stuff. It's just the more we can have these conversations, and the more show men it's okay to have these conversations, and actually the benefits of them.
Yeah,
the better for me. So just thank you for facilitating it and for having me. And
thank you.
Yeah, good luck with the message you share. It's great.
Thank you. Where can people find you, contact you, be coached by you?
It's all pretty much on Instagram these days. You know, that takes enough energy as it is.
Don't we know it?
My God. Yeah, so that's them, the Naked
you've
Professor.
Got some great content. Yeah, sorry, at
the Naked Professor. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, everything goes through there really.
And nice. Your podcast as well.
Podcast, The Naked Professors. So very, like you guys, there's two of us, and similar kind of thing, really, trying to get people to share from their heart.
If you haven't listened to it, it's a really beautiful podcast to listen to. You get some wonderful guests on there, like people from all walks of life and all types of people, people well known, people not so well known, and it's really beautiful to hear a lot of the conversations that you guys have.
Just going to ask you actually, why Naked Professors?
Well, my name was The Naked Professor, and then another one, and Matt joined. So, but the concept is, naked, raw, vulnerable, open, bare your soul, remove the masks, all that kind of, naked rawness, all the stuff we've just spoken about. Returning back to our innocence, if you like. That's kind of the naked, and then I guess, like the naked coach probably sounds a bit wrong or whatever. So, I don't know. Exactly. But The Naked Professor is just what it was. What it was. I don't know.
That's cool.
And, so then two of us, The Naked Professors. I guess that's how it is now. Although I actually see on Instagram now, people are sort of going back to the original, the actual names. It all started gimmicky, and now I'm seeing more people return. Maybe I'll be Ben Bidwell one day. Who knows?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's actually interesting, right? You use the word naked, we use the word authentic.
Yeah.
So I was authentic dating, so it could have been the same sort of thing. The naked dating series.
Yeah, but that again, it's got, you don't know where that goes.
Yeah. Well, we like a bit of edge, because I think these days, and this is a bit off topic, but edge cuts through all the noise, right?
Yeah.
Like if it doesn't have any edge, and if it's just bland and vanilla, then no one's like...
Well, authenticity is edgy.
Yeah.
Like always, we're all unique, right?
Yeah, we are, for sure. No, that's great. Do you want to do a quick wrap up or?
Oh wow!
Yeah, but just to, for anyone, I know men love a wrap up. Just to give the key points. So, we started off with like the keys to deep and meaningful connection. The importance of redefining the word vulnerability. We spoke about our own journeys, and I think that's really important to understand that everyone has their own unique journey into vulnerability. We covered why a lack of vulnerability equals a lack of connection. Mostly leaving people talking about football and the weather and stuff, and not getting deeper and never really meeting people. And then what I really enjoyed was like the signs that you're not being vulnerable, because I think that's something that's like, if there ever was a playbook for vulnerability, that's really key to spot actually when you're feeling stuck. And then why vulnerability is so hot for connection is the key. And then finally we gave some great tips about each of us shared about how, because again, men, we like the structure, how steps 1, 2, 3. So no, that was really, really cool. Thanks, Ben, so much for having us today. I know you're a busy guy. All that naked content coming out with the duck. If you haven't seen, check out Ben's Instagram. It's really fun.
Well, thank you.
It's good stuff.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate having me.
Cool.
Great. Thank you for listening, and we'll be seeing you soon.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao, ciao.